think about just going out and some random person trying to like build a house and hopefully it sells. And they design this beautiful, huge home. They spend all the time meeting with the architect. They spend all the time meeting with the designer, and they build it, and they found out that nobody wants to buy it. Uh-oh, that's not good. It's the same thing with a piece of land. You have to know how to design it based on the homes that are selling in the area.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, legal, or investment advice. Please consult a professional advisor before making decisions based on what you hear on this show.
Welcome to Wall Street Tribe. Excited to bring Mr. Brandon Cobb into the show. Brandon, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be here with you guys.
Brandon, what makes land development so interesting right now?
Oh, man, you put me on the spot. Well, the last 4.5 years, nobody built any homes. That was COVID and 2020 and the interest rate hike of 2022. And it's created an unprecedented opportunity. Less than 10% of homes that are being built are entry-level housing. And you've got over 33% of the home buying population, millennials specifically, that need that product type. So it's basic math. You have huge supply and demand imbalances right now.
Hey, you talked about this when we were just chatting before press and record. You said something, there is a amazing gap between the rent rates and owning a home. Would you go a little bit deeper into that? Because I don't think many of the people listening, right, are in that position, but I think that goes into detail of why we wanted to have you on the show, what this opportunity really is.
Yeah, so the demand for home ownership is there, right? You've got all these millennials that are the kids of the baby boomers that are in their 30s. They're at prime home buying age, right? They're starting families, they're settling down, but less than 10% of homes are being built. And you've got this historic black swan event, this interest rate rise, fastest the Fed's ever risen rate. It's in history, I think, since like the 70s. I won't say in history, but I think since the 70s. And the gap between what it costs to own a home versus what it costs to rent a home has never been greater. So for those that can create these entry-level housing products, and let's boil that down, $2,500 per month or less. Like that is what your blue-collar, working-class married family that has, their first kiddo can afford. If you can figure out how to create and introduce that product market to the market, then it's going to get sucked up. It's going to get absorbed pretty quickly, provided that it's in the right area that needs that.
How many summers do you have left with your kids? 10, maybe less?
And are you spending them together, or are you still stuck in the office while time slips by?
You want freedom. That's not the problem. The problem is you don't have a system that buys back your time. Without it, 3 years from now, your kids will be older and they won't care that your business was more successful. They'll remember you weren't there.
That's why we built the Passive Income Operating System, the plan we use to create over $50,000 a month in passive income. The system isn't free, but the training that shows you how it works is, and it's under an hour.
Go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/PIOS. Take the first step to buying back your time now.
So, Brandon, I'm hearing you explain the opportunity that entry-level housing is a big deal, but I'm not necessarily connecting the dots on how does that affect me? Like, how could I possibly be a part of that wave of opportunity as you speak about it?
Yeah, so you can invest in many different ways, but no matter what you invest in as far as real estate goes, it all starts with the land. So I'm one of the co-founders of HBG Capital. We're a boutique real estate private equity firm based in Nashville, Tennessee, and we take farmland and we turn it into entry-level housing communities that then these national home builders like Lennar, D.R. Horton, they gobble it up, and they've got a checkbook with an unlimited amount of dollars that they can write you if you provide the right opportunity. So we work with the local municipalities to identify the parcels of land that are not the highest and best use that could really benefit from these entry-level housing products. We put it under contract. We take it through that process. We call it entitlement. That's basically getting it approved from farmland to new housing community. And at that point, we've created a ton of equity in the land, right? We forced appreciated it before we buy it. From there, we can do a couple things. We have multiple exit strategies. Number one, we can land bank it. So we get our investors say, hey, look at this parcel of land in this growing area with lots of demand. We buy it with 100% investor equity, and we just hold on to it for a year or two. Maybe we develop it later on. Maybe we just turn around and sell it in a year or two. So that's exit strategy number one. Exit strategy number two is we take the land that we own outright with our investors, and we go and we get a loan to actually put the roads, the infrastructure, the utilities in that land, and we force appreciate the value again for a second time, and we sell the ready to build lots to these AAA rated, Wall Street funded national home builders. I know you guys are big fans of like wealth without Wall Street, and that's what we're doing. We're on the side where Wall Street's actually giving us the money back.
So a couple of questions come to mind. One is, how do you protect yourself in this? Is there always a end buyer on the opposite end? And also, for those who are maybe really familiar with us talking about the land flipping, land investing model, the way we just buy raw vacant land and turn around and sell it, talk about the differences between that. So I'll let you answer the first one and come back to the second question.
Yeah. So how do you protect yourself? Biggest risk is don't buy it before the approvals are in place. That's probably the biggest mistake I see people make that go from the land flipping business into trying to do these larger land development deals, the rezoning, like working with the city to do some sophisticated entitlement stuff. Don't do that. That is the biggest de-risk you can do. Again, that's where you create all your value, is when all those approvals are in place. The second is, don't buy anything until you have an end buyer lined up and you know what your costs are. So part of that process is to nail down during your due diligence period, confirming what a buyer is going to pay for it, what the market is willing to pay, and what it could potentially cost you to develop that site. Or if you're going to hold on to it, what it could potentially sell for in a year or two if you decide to land bank that product. If you just do that alone, that's a big domino that you can knock down. Now, everything else is centered around just picking the right areas and the right product type, right? Like, you're not going to acquire a piece of land to build luxury homes in an area where homes are only selling for like $300,000-$400,000. So you want to make sure that you start with the right area first, and then make sure you have the right product to put on that. If you do those two things alone, you've eliminated a lot of the risk.
Somebody might ask the question, why doesn't the big home builders, the D.R. Horton and other groups like that, why would they not just come in and do it themselves instead of buy it from you?
Yeah, so they do. They go after these swaths of land that are 200, 300, 400, 500 homes, but they're not going after the stuff that's like 100, 150 or less. But they will buy those opportunities if you get it approved for them. You see, it takes the same amount of time and effort to get a piece of land approved for 20 homes as it does a piece of land that's 300 homes. So why would they focus on the smaller opportunities? And their kind of minimum is like 40, 50 units. If it's that smaller than that, they don't really want it. But they're going after the bigger stuff. That's where they want to put their time and effort for the approval process. But if you bring them a piece of land that's good for 50, 100 homes and it's ready to go, heck yeah, they will buy it because of the time value. They don't have to take it through the approval process.
Super interesting how you explain that. Now, break down, Russ mentioned earlier that we have a lot of people that are involved in like the Land Geek process. Mm-hmm. Kind of do the differences between what you guys are doing and what the Land Geek process looks like.
Yeah, the Land Geek process, and again, you guys can probably speak to it a little bit better because, we don't have that background or that experience. But from what I know about it, it's smaller parcels, right? And you're creating cash flow from these parcels through the owner financing, where you can acquire it and sell it on owner financing terms for a lot more than you get. And these are usually smaller transactions, right? You can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think anywhere between, $5,000 and, maybe $20,000, on the parcels that they're creating these cash flow from. Your buyers are, I think, usually these people that doomsday preppers or hunters or anybody that really wants to have a parcel of land they can kind of go to for whatever their hobby is, or end of the world scenario. Again, I'm not going to speak to that too much. It's a higher transaction volume game, right? And you're probably marketing to a list of very rural properties that have landlocked potential or there's not a lot of motivation for the seller to hang on to it. And you're trying to acquire it for probably less than what the appraisal value is or the city tax price is, right? That's what you're going after. What we do is a little bit different. I'm a sniper. I'm not a spray and pray. We've got a very specific strategy. We know the areas we want to be in. We know the parcels that are going to be best suited for what we want to do. And I'm calling them, letting them know that I'm going to pay them 2, 3, 4, 5 times what their land is worth. And that gets them very curious. They're like, well, how are you going to do that? And then I explain how we're going to force appreciate it and do that. But I need them to hang in there for a year and a half while I take it through this approval process. So it's definitely a little bit different, right? I'm not buying things and then putting it back on the market and selling it and over finance. I'm creating that value through that process.
All right. I know there's a couple of people thinking this, so I'm going to ask it. I think it helps both sides of the equation. Why would the person that you're telling, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go do this very thing with your property. You just give me, 12 to 18 months to get it approved, and then I'll pay you 2 to 3x. And they know the only way that you're going to do that is because you're going to make money on top of it. Why wouldn't they do that themselves?
Yeah, because it's a very sophisticated process. Entitlement is not easy. It's not something that you can just go and figure out, though anybody is capable of doing that. There are so many gotchas when it comes with working with the city and all the loopholes that you have to jump through. If you don't know how to navigate that process properly, it's not going to take you a year. It's going to take you 5, 6, 7 years just fumbling around, figuring it out. You're going to spend money on things that you don't need to spend money on. And they don't even know how a lot of times to go about even approaching it, right? You could hire the wrong civil engineer. And if you don't know how to design the community with the end buyer in mind, think about just going out and some random person trying to like build a house and hopefully it sells. And they design this beautiful, huge home. They spend all the time meeting with the architect. They spend all the time meeting with the designer, and they build it. And they found out that nobody wants to buy it. Uh-oh, that's not good. It's the same thing with a piece of land. You have to know how to design it based on the homes that are selling in the area and what it's going to fit on. How large should the lots be? How big should the backyards be? What should the frontage of the homes be? How far back should they set? How much distance should be in between the homes in order to create a community that's actually going to sell? And that's what we're very good at. We know what our national home builders partner wants, and we know how to reverse engineer it. I'll give you a perfect example. Had somebody bring us a parcel because they heard that we buy this type of stuff. They had it approved. They spent all this time and effort to get this 43 townhome community approved. And when I looked at it, the townhomes were 11 feet wide. Now, they made the mistake that most new developers make. They just shoved as much density as possible on this land because all they had were dollar signs in their head. They didn't give any mind to what the community wanted, to what the council person wanted. And as a result, there was no builder that was going to buy it to build 11-foot wide townhome units. If they had done the research, they'd known that every builder has a 20, 22-foot wide product that's 45 to 55 feet long, and they needed to have the building footprint set that. So knowing what to design is very important.
How much passive income do you have right now? And if in 5 years you're still at the same point, what's that going to cost you? Maybe more time at a job you hate or missing moments with your family?
See, most people don't move because they don't know what to do. So they just keep doing the exact same thing.
That's why we built the Passive Income Lab. It's a 12-week program where you are guaranteed your first $500 a month in passive income.
But here's the catch. It's not open to everyone. We only let in 10 people at a time.
So the real question is, will you be one of them? Apply now at choosepassiveincome.com.
There was nothing worse than walking into class when you're in school and the teacher saying, "Pop quiz day." Why? Because you were unprepared. Are you unprepared, though, for financial freedom?
Don't be. Find out how close you are by taking our 30-second quiz at wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/quiz.
Okay, so you just made a comment that anybody can do this. You just have to know what you're doing. Otherwise, it takes a really long time and so forth. Where did you... this isn't something you've always done, right? You did something before this. Talk about how you made that transition and and how you got introduced to the concept.
Yeah. So before we started selling to national home builders, we were builders. And, I'll kind of, I was doing medical device sales and ended up getting into the entrepreneurship game, started flipping houses, started building houses, and we were just spread out everywhere. We were building all these houses, and we said, man, it would be so easy to build all these homes on one piece of land, not having to be spread out. You're building the same product over and over again. Oh my God, like it was a dream come true for where we currently were. We had 20 builds kind of spread out all over the place, different products on different size pieces of land, right? And when we were developing, and when I use the word developing, I mean doing like the horizontal construction, the roads, the streets, the infrastructure, we were getting ready to build a community, and we got a knock on the door from a national home builder. And they said, hey, we really like your community. We want to buy it. And we said, get lost. It's not for sale. And then they came knocking on our door again. We said, well, what if we offered you this for it? And we said, hey, look, we told you to get lost. Get out of here. And they come knocking on our door again. We said, well, what if we gave you this for it? And we looked at this, and my partner and I looked at each other going, this is for sale. You can definitely have it. And do you want the one across the street we're going to do in a year? Like, we'll develop that for you. So that's how we got into the development game. We were builders. We had a background doing new construction, and we had a need to grow that business. And we just realized it was better to be on the side of the table that Wall Street was cutting checks to rather than competing with.
It makes sense now that you would go from that mindset. You already knew what it took to build on a lot. So then buying property, doing all of the development, you already have all of those insights. You've done that a handful of times. All right, Stallion, you can't go do it unless you start learning how to become a builder. I've just navigated that process for you.
No worries. I'm out.
All right, I do want to talk about talk to the person who's thinking about investing through this strategy, right? A lot of times our clients are looking for cash flow. Typically, though, I'm assuming that these sort of investment opportunities take a little time. Talk a little bit about how you navigate that, what that time frame is. I think you guys bring on investors. How does someone work with you guys?
Yeah. So, I'm very transparent. We're not a good fit for everybody. Some of the disadvantages are, there's no depreciation. You can't depreciate land. You can't depreciate all the stuff that you're putting in it. And you're right. There's no monthly or quarterly cash flow. So if that's something that, investors are looking for, if you're at a stage of your life where monthly and quarterly cash flow is important to you, we're probably not the right fit, right? I know a ton of multifamily operators and storage unit operators. They offer the depreciation, the monthly cash flow. I've got some guys that invest and do hard money loans, and they teach how to lend on single family fix and flips. I personally think that's a fantastic monthly passive income game. That's not us. But, if you're somebody who's wanting to diversify your portfolio, we offer very strong preferred returns. We do an 18% preferred return. Obviously, past performance is no indication of future results, and it's not financial advice. But it's really great for compounding, your wealth. And if you're somebody that doesn't like the idea of having your capital locked up for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and you don't like the idea of having the risks, the interest rate risks of what's happened, in the multifamily world here recently with all the bridge debt, and there's a lot of distress in the multifamily world, then we might be a good option for you to look at. Average turnaround time is 15 months or less, so we're more liquid than what your other syndications are, and we've got the ability to force appreciate assets before we buy it. So much like if you're investing in a house flip or a multifamily, the value add strategy happens after you purchase it. Our value add strategy happens before we purchase it. So investors are immediately walking into a ton of equity, a lot of downside protection when they invest in our land deals. And it's really nice to have stuff that's pre-sold. So when we come to them and say, hey, I've got a AAA rated builder that is wanting to buy this multiple a lot of the times, and it's a name brand like Lennar D.R. Horton, they're like, okay, I'm interested in that. Your buyer's buying it cash and they're putting a 10% deposit down for the purchase price. Okay, I'm interested. Talk to me about that, Brandon. So there's definitely some benefits. The multiple exit strategies is another one that I really highlight. It's one of the few where you're not locked into a specific exit. We can land bank it. We don't have any loans on it. The investors own it outright. There's no note that's going to get called due. I don't have to worry about the market. We bought some land in September 2022. Worst time to buy it. Bought it with 100% investor equity. We sat on it for a year and a half. Market bounced back. We developed and sold it, and it was great. So there's definitely some advantages to it, provided it's the right fit for the investor.
Okay, so I may be misunderstanding the process a little bit, but I want to just follow up with the timeline it takes to get a deal done.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that you already have the value added and pre-sold before you close on the property. Are you saying that you use investor capital today and then 15 months later it closes? Or like, help me understand that the purchase happens today with investor capital. What takes 15 months to actually occur?
So first step, I'm going to break it down into 2 steps. Step 1 is entitling it. So we need to take that farmland and we need to get it approved for a community. So we put it under contract with an option. If we don't get the outcome that we want for whatever reason, and we usually know during the due diligence process whether or not we're going to get that outcome, we don't do that deal, right? We've got to have the value there. If we get it approved, there's a lot of equity. We then go to investors and we can land bank it. So we say, hey, we've got this piece of land approved for $1.5 million. It's worth $2.5 million. We want to land bank it, hold it for a year or 2 because there's a lot of development in the area. It's like the island, right? That parcel that's kind of, it's naked and there's tons of development around it. We're just going to hold it for a year or 2, wait for that development to come to fruition. It's going to force appreciate it even more, and then we're going to sell it. And a lot of times we're doing that with 100% investor equity because, we're not raising, $10 million to go buy a piece of land, right? It's pretty easy to buy it with equity. The reason we buy it with 100% equity is we could then do step 2 if we want, which is contract with a national home builder to buy the build-ready lots. So we've got this flat piece of farmland, but there's no roads. There's no sewer. There's no water. Well, that's a second layer of forced appreciation that we can add to the land. Remember, first is getting it approved, forced appreciation layer number 1, and then doing the actual development work, forced appreciation number 2. We can execute that play. And again, everything we do is pre-sold. So I know what we can potentially sell that land for before we get it approved because I'm doing my due diligence. I know my market. I'm getting my LOIs from my builders. I'm looking at what the development costs are going to be. I'm doing my homework during that due diligence process. And if it's going to have a lot of equity at the end of that approval, we take it through and we buy it with investor capital.
Hey, walk us through a couple of deals that you've done. Maybe share some lessons that you learned when a deal didn't go great. Like, what did that look like as compared to some of those home runs, right? We all know that, not everything's perfect. So when that happened, what did you guys do to overcome it?
Yeah. So we finished developing a 74 home community. Our all-in cost with the land purchase and the development cost was right around $62,000-63,000 per pad. And we're selling it for $92,000 per pad, just to give you an idea of what the numbers look like on that. Mistake made, due diligence on the builder. In this case, we kind of navigated away from our model. We had a local builder that was offering us more money than our national home builders that we like to use, and we were very attracted by that. Well, guess what happened? That local builder, they're not a national builder. They don't have the cash that they do. They don't have the buying power. They had trouble with their financing. And as a result, they kept pushing the closing date, and they did not perform. So we terminated. Well, what they had done was they were trying to pre-sell those lots. And by pre-selling those lots, it was easier for them to get financing, but they didn't pre-sell enough to close. And again, this is where we didn't do enough due diligence on them. We should have checked them out financially more instead of just looking at the really great offer that they have. Well, here's what they did. They ended up needing more time. And when we terminated, they went and recorded a lien against the property, a cloud on title, and we couldn't sell it to anybody else. And then they tried to negotiate, basically extorting some money out of us to go away. When they figured out that I went and had all their listings removed, and so their ability to pre-sell disappeared. And they realized, okay, crap, like they sort of figured us out. We're not going to be able to get the financing together. Let's, force them to give us some money to walk away. And so I had to sue them. I had to hire an attorney. I had to sue them. They saw we weren't backing down. I had to agree to give them their earnest money to walk away. And then we turned around and sold it to a national home builder that wanted it for actually more money than what they originally offered it. So it worked out, but that is an example of what can potentially go wrong in those type of deals. So because of that, I kind of learned my lesson. Like, we just need to stick to who we've done business with in the past, which is these national home builders.
So when an investor gets a part of your deals like this, what's a typical partnership look like? How are they going to benefit from being a part of the deal?
So they invest as an equity partner. We do syndications. They get an 18% preferred return. So cash comes in from the sale of the lots. Bank note or first position note gets paid off first, and they get paid off as the equity investors. We do a 100% waterfall to them. So we can't make any money on any profits GP wise until we get them completely out of the deal, and we profit on the remaining lots that are sold. It's a very simple business model, but it's worked well for us.
Brandon, thank you for sharing this. This has been really interesting to break down just a completely different strategy. We have a couple of friends who've done something similar, but really not at the level that you're sharing. If somebody listening wants to connect with you, where would you send them?
Yeah, we've served two different groups, the investors that want to passively do this kind of stuff. And then, there's a lot of land flippers that want to learn how to do this entitlement process or do this development. They kind of want to get into some bigger deals. So if you're an investor and you're trying to build a legacy, make an impact, and create passive income, if you think land might be a good strategy, you can go to our website, hbgcapital.net. We've got a free ebook on that website called 100 Questions Business Owners Ask Before Investing. I wrote that ebook because I got a call from one of our investors whose buddy lost all of his money to a real estate sponsor asking for my advice. And it became very evident early on in that call that the reason he lost all of his money was because he was very green. He did not know how to do the DD on the sponsor or the operator. And I'm a big believer that questions unlock the answers we need to make more informed investment decisions. So I put that ebook together to give you the questions that you need to unlock the answers to make better informed business decisions. So you can go to hbgcapital.net, check that out. If you want to do what we do, if maybe you're a land flipper or you're a builder and you're wanting to do larger deals, but you're not sure how to navigate that process and you don't want to make the mistakes, you can go to learnlanddevelopment.com. We've got a free course, Land Development 101. It's 6 hours worth of content on how to get started. And so you can go check that out.
Well, Tribe, you got a new idea. You have opportunity to check out what they're up to, and learnlanddevelopment.com is an idea for those of you who want to be the do-it-yourselfer model. Sounds like. Brandon, thank you again for sharing. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Yeah, no, thanks, man. It was an honor.
This has been the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show to break free of the Wall Street mindset and begin building wealth on your own terms in places you understand so that your wealth will never run dry. See you next episode.